Welcome to Energy Careers, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast dedicated to exploring opportunities in the dynamic world of the energy sector. For 13 years, I've had the privilege of navigating this sector, and it has significantly shaped my professional and entrepreneurial journey. Join me as we uncover exciting pathways for those interested in making their mark in this exciting sector. Let's dive in. Welcome to another installment of the Energy Careers segment, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast, which highlights opportunities for young people looking to participate in the energy sector by following the journeys of seasoned experts in South Africa's energy sector. In today's episode, we are discovering the energy journeys of Dominic Milazi, Lungile L, and Kofi Amparabeng. Dominic, if I can start with you, please share your energy journey. How did you get involved in the energy sector? What did you study? And what has been your career path up to this point?
Well, what a loaded question. Well, I'll start with the easy part first. I studied chemical engineering at UCT and got a chance to get a scholarship to study at Duke University, studying environmental management, and then later on an MBA as well. I think having said that, the nice thing about the energy sector is that it's so multidisciplinary. So there's people in there who are like me, engineers, lawyers, there's accountants like Kofi. So there isn't one qualification that kind of pre-selects you, if you like, for this area. It really is open to everyone. In terms of my journey, my first break into renewables was really around 2009 or so, when I joined one of the startup project developers that were developing a project under REAP Round 1. And that's actually where I first met Kofi around 2010 when he was at the IDC. It really has been a long journey, and I'm probably giving away how old we are. So after a couple of years in project development, transitioned over into policy research at CSIR. Also had a stint at IDC, and now I'm at the World Bank. So there's been a few movements, but I think once I got to IDC, things started to coalesce, and I started to understand, like, yeah, this is exactly the space that I'd like to be in. Hopefully, I've covered all the kind of angles on your question.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Dominic. It was a very, very interesting project that you were involved in. Lungile, if you can share a bit about your journey, how did you get involved in the energy sector? What did you study, and what has been your career path up to this point?
Thanks, Tawazile. It feels like an interview. These questions are usually asked in interviews. And yeah, it doesn't happen often that you have to speak about yourself. Sometimes you have to think back and remind yourself where you started. But just to start off, I'm also a UCT alma mater as well. I studied at UCT, and really my educational journey was driven by a path to eventually qualify as a chartered accountant. So that was my educational journey and my professional journey. So after studying at UCT, I started working at Deloitte to do my articles for 3 years, where I focused on financial services clients. And then really, after staying briefly at Deloitte, I joined the IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation, and that's where I met with Kofi again after seeing him on the campus at UCT. And they particularly focused on industrial sectors. And my really first encounter with renewable energy was at the time we were trying to develop the manufacturing capability in the country to support the renewable energy investment trajectory that the country was undergoing. And it's interesting that also at the time I decided to embark, in a Master of Philosophy degree in development finance at UCT GSB. And really after that, I think I had my interest peaked involving or working in a specialized environment that focuses on infrastructure and particularly project finance. And as you see me where I am now as well. And really the focus when I joined DBSA started off with just renewable energy in South Africa. And then it branched out to renewable energy in the rest of the continent as well. And it has been quite an incredible and fulfilling journey to see development and to see how infrastructure development can transform economies. I mean, we've seen the rollout of renewable energy procurement programs, the start thereof in the likes of Kenya, for instance, from a geothermal perspective, the likes of Gabon from a hydropower perspective. So it really has been an incredible journey and fulfilling in terms of broadening my knowledge in really infrastructure and really seeing what infrastructure can do from a development standpoint as well. So yeah, that's been my journey thus far, and I continue to embark in this infrastructure journey, particularly energy. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lungile. Kofi, if I can bring you in, what has been your energy journey? How did you get involved in the sector? What did you study? And what has been your career path up to this point?
Yeah, thanks, Toko. It's actually quite interesting that what Lungile has said, if you had to just rewind it and play back, that's been precisely my journey. So I don't think you'll ever find two other panelists with the same footprint. And just to recap, so it was UCT, finance and accounting majors. It was 3 years at Deloitte as well. It was then followed by IDC. So the only difference was that after the DFI space, I then moved in the last 2 years or so to Nedbank. So having a little bit more exposure under commercial bank. So that's probably the only difference between myself and Lungile. Dates back to around 2011, Dominic mentioned, where I got involved in renewables at IDC, and it really came about because the sector was new. They were looking for new team members to fill the energy team at IDC, and I was approached. I put up my hand, and I haven't looked back since. Just to touch on one thing, Dominic did say it's quite a multidisciplinary environment that we operate in. So you'll find there's engineers, there's lawyers. And for me, that's the part I find quite fascinating, in that as much as I've got finance background or accounting background, I've had to grow in the area of technical projects that we look at are technical in nature, whether you're looking at a wind farm, hydro plant, a solar plant. There's a lot of technical understanding that's needed, and you need to grow that proficiency. And similarly, I'm sure you'll be aware the legal paperwork that's involved in the deals, it's enormous. So there's a lot of negotiating, there's a lot of transacting, there's a lot of agreements, and you also then have to build your proficiency when it comes to law. So for me, I think that's the part that I found quite intriguing, and having to elevate my knowledge when it comes to technical and my legal background. And the goal is really to get to a point where people can't tell whether you're a lawyer or you're an engineer or you're an accountant. Thanks.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Building that that multidisciplinary skill set. And I think it is quite important in the energy sector to for people to be mindful of that, but also it says to any young person, you know, that there is a way in. You know, with your qualification, with your degree, you can find a way into the sector, and because it's a sector that really keeps giving, we all then have had an opportunity to, you know, to grow beyond where we initially had started. I mean, I started as a lawyer and have been able to start understanding more of the numbers and understanding more of the commercial and the financial aspects of it, as well as the technical side. And I think the key is to start and just leave and be open to the experience. And I think perhaps maybe just final short closing remarks from our guests in terms of any advice that you would give to a young person. You know, you've all been involved in the sector for a number of years. If you were looking at you 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what advice would you give to somebody looking to make a career in the energy sector? Dominic, if I can start with you.
Yeah, I would say just try to find which entry point works best for you. The sector is still opening up. It's still evolving. There's still a lot of room for even entrepreneurs. And I think it's key to really kind of believe in yourself. Obviously, there's going to be people who are more experienced than you are, and that's okay. But we are all also learning as things go along. 10 years ago, all of us were new to this. Now you see private sector participation is coming into transmission. That's new for everyone. We all have to learn there as well. Just energy transition. How do we deal with this influx of international funding and make sure it's deployed properly? We all have to learn how that works. So just come with an open mind, come with a disposition to learn, and also a disposition to kind of work with lots of stakeholders, because the energy kind of sector requires all kinds of stakeholders to pull together. And I think if you come with that kind of like mindset, you should be okay in the long term.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Lungile, your advice?
Yeah, I'm also aligned with Dominic here. I mean, you know, we've been exposed to, you know, I don't want to reveal my age, but, you know, the generation that we have currently, you know, there's this instant gratification, the need for instant gratification, and that really can apply in a working environment as well. So I think, you know, in this sector, particularly from, you know, even if you're with a developer or you're on the financing side, you really need to spend time investing in understanding the sector and being patient with that as well, and be prepared to start from the bottom, where you may be doing the most mundane work, but there's always an area or an opportunity to learn from whatever you are doing, as mundane as it may be. So I think that's what a person needs to prepare themselves for, especially when they're coming in fresh, without any prior experience, because the sector is very specialized and you need to invest in knowledge and experience. And the experience is acquired from doing more projects, getting, you know, seeing a project to close, and all that knowledge can be applied once more to another project, and you can increase that learning capacity and opportunity as and when you are participating or getting involved in different projects. So really be patient with your learning and be open to this learning journey. It can be slow as well. In one project, you may not even do much and it may all be a blur, but it will make sense in the future as well. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Lungile. Kofi, if I can close off with you, what advice would you give to a young person?
Great. Look, I think both Lungile and Dominic have summed it up. We operate in such a dynamic, fast-moving sector. When we started, it was all about solar PV, wind, maybe hydro. Things have quickly moved. Now we're talking gas, we're talking battery, and then the next wave is potentially green hydrogen. We're talking trading markets. So it's such a dynamic field that we operate in. Fortunately, we're also living in an era where everything is at your fingertips. So you can just simply go onto YouTube, you can Google, and you'll find a wealth of information out there. So for me, if you have some inkling of interest towards renewable energy, just start building that knowledge, building that that wealth of information. And I think through that, you'll probably find it'll start to open doors and channel you into an environment that you can get involved into the sector. Thanks, Toga.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our guests, and really highlighting that, yeah, it is the sector that keeps giving. There's a lot that's available. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of different ways to get in, to get involved. And I mean, I'm completely blown away that, I mean, we've been able to get content for 11 episodes and we still have the rest of the season left, because there is just so much to talk about and there's so much involved in the sector. You know, as you've rightly noted, you know, green hydrogen are things that we've spoken about. We'll be speaking about energy trading, clean energy. We've spoken about solar, wind. We'll also then obviously just understanding it, whether or not you are going to pick up a career in the sector, but it's the one sector that intimately impacts your day-to-day life. When we're speaking about just taking it down to electricity pricing, it is the one sector that it is incumbent on you as a South African to understand how this sector works, because the next time you are paying for electricity, you know, and when there are increases or there are changes from a tariff perspective, it's good to know. It's you know, whether or not you're looking at it from a career perspective, but I think just as a day-to-day lived experience as a South African, understanding the sector is absolutely crucial. And that brings us to the end of another installment of the Energy Career segment. Thank you to our guests for sharing so generously of their journeys. Join us next time as we explore more energy journeys on Energy Careers, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast.
Thank you for tuning into Energy Careers, where we explore the endless possibilities in the energy sector. Don't miss out on future episodes where we'll feature more inspiring journeys and insights on how to embark on your own energy career path. Subscribe now to the Energy Conversations podcast and unlock the door to exciting opportunities in the dynamic world of energy. Your journey begins here.